What's going on, guys? Josh here from Moment Productions, and today we are going to be comparing the Zhiyun Crane Plus and the Feiyu-Tech a2000. These are the two biggest competitors out in the market today, and I know that you guys are dying to find out which gimbal is better for you. Now, full disclosure before we begin, neither company has paid me to make this video. I'm doing this out of my own free will. I'm going to be using as much objective evidence as I can to make this video as unbiased as possible. Alright, let's get started. Starting with the Feiyu-Tech a2000, it comes very well packaged in a soft shell case. As soon as we open up the case, the gimbal comes split up into two different pieces, the gimbal handle and the gimbal itself. In order to put all of these things together, we have to hook up the two batteries into the gimbal handle and then connect the two pieces. FeiyuTech supplies 4 batteries with this setup, allowing you to use it for 12 hours straight. However, only 2 batteries can be used at once, and that will give you 6 hours of operation time. Once both pieces are ready, we can connect them by using the locking ring. Make sure that the connection ports fit on properly. This setup also comes with a plastic tripod. I don't recommend using this tripod since it won't do a good job holding up a heavy setup. So try to use a different type of tripod. For example, I use the Per-Gear aluminum tripod. The gimbal body and gimbal handle are both composed out of aluminum alloy. The handle on the gimbal is also coated with rubber, so it gives you a nice solid grip. Because of a recent firmware upgrade for the Feiyu-Tech a2000, the payload capacity has jumped from 4 pounds to 5.5 pounds. On the front of the gimbal, we have our LED indicator, joystick, mode button, and our picture taking button. On the back of the gimbal, we have a trigger which also allows you to change shooting modes. On the side of the gimbal, we have a USB connection port made for firmware upgrading. We also have 2 1/4 20-inch accessory ports made for lights, microphones, and other filmmaking accessories. On the pitch motor, we also have a shutter release port. This is so you can trigger the shutter on your camera via the controls on the gimbal. The a2000 comes with a quick release plate, which makes balancing a little bit easier. The gimbal balances exactly like any other gimbal that's on the market. It even has little rivets engraved into the metal, allowing you to incrementally adjust each axis. The a2000 also has 3 different brushless motors on each axis. They have an infinite rotation of 360 degrees. Now let's get on to the Crane Plus. The Crane Plus comes packed in a hard shell case. As soon as we open up the case, we have a similar design as the Feiyu-Tech a2000. It's a split gimbal design, which means we have the gimbal handle, which holds our batteries, and we have the gimbal itself, which holds our camera. As soon as we insert the batteries, we can then screw on the gimbal handle to the actual gimbal. Then we can screw on the included aluminum tripod. With the Crane Plus, we have a sliding plate. Slightly different than the a2000. We use the included screws to mount our camera, and then we adjust the sliding plate forward or backward to help us out with our balance. On the front of the gimbal, we have an LED indicator, joystick, mode button, picture and video record button, and zoom toggle. On the side of the gimbal, we also have a connection port for upgrading firmware. On the pitch motor, we have another port which allows you to control your camera's functions like video recording and charging via the gimbal's batteries. Alright, let's get to the good stuff. Let's compare the two. Let's start off with something simple. The 1/4 20-inch ports on the bottom of both gimbals. On the Feiyu-Tech a2000, we have a 1/4 20-inch port. However, on the Crane Plus, we have a 3/8-inch port with a 1/4 20-inch adapter. Next, let's talk about the grip. The grip on the Feiyu-Tech a2000 is coated with rubber, and it has a thicker overall handle compared to the Crane Plus. Now, you know me, I like my thick handles. Yeah, I like my thick handles. So I do like the grip better on the Feiyu-Tech a2000. When we talk about the Crane Plus, I appreciate the fact that they incorporated a little bit of a rest area for your forefinger so you can take a little bit of pressure off of your forearms. Next, the battery compartment. On the Feiyu-Tech a2000, we have a fully integrated battery compartment, which means that it is practically impossible to accidentally disconnect battery power. However, on the Crane Plus, we don't have a fully integrated battery compartment. Sometimes I accidentally twist the handle and the batteries lose connection and the gimbal powers off. Next, the control panel. Overall, I do like the buttons more on the Crane Plus. It seems like the buttons are slightly more spread out, and my thumb can easier reach these buttons compared to the A2000. I also like that there is a zoom toggle function which allows you to control zoom on some lenses. Now here's one thing about the A2000 which I think is kind of a flaw, and that is the connection ports between the gimbal handle and the gimbal body. If those connections get dirty or bent, your gimbal won't power on. Both gimbals do a great job of concealing all the wires, so it doesn't stick out and it doesn't look unprofessional. When it came down to balancing, I did find that the Crane Plus was easier to balance. The rivets engraved on the metals of the A2000 didn't allow me to achieve perfect balance because I needed to get in between those little rivets. On the roll axis of the A2000, it was extremely difficult to balance. My roll axis arm seemed like it was jammed, probably because of the rivets, or I don't know what, but it was just not easy to balance for me. I do love the quick release plate idea on the A2000, however the rivets didn't allow me to get that perfect balance like I mentioned earlier. When it comes down to accessories, the A2000 wins because it has those 2 additional accessory ports. Unfortunately, on the Crane Plus, we don't have those accessory ports. When it comes down to integrating your camera with your gimbal, the Crane Plus definitely wins. It not only allows you to charge your camera using the gimbal's batteries, but allows you to start and stop recording along with zoom toggling. As mentioned earlier, the A2000 only has a shutter release port. When it comes down to battery life, the Crane Plus wins. It gets 15 hours, while the A2000 gets 6 hours per pair. When it comes down to clearance, for example, when you want to use a camera cage or attach other accessories to your camera, I did find that the A2000 had slightly larger clearance. When it comes down to shooting modes, the Crane Plus has one additional shooting mode called POV. As I turn the gimbal handle, the roll axis will follow my movement. On the A2000, you have to manually control this by using the joystick. Next, let's talk about going into inverted mode. Usually gimbals love to shake and do crazy things while you try to go into inverted mode. And for those of you who don't know, inverted mode is when you flip the gimbal upside down in order to get low angle shots. Both gimbals did a great job going into inverted mode. However, with the A2000, I did feel a little bit of gimbal shake when I went into inverted mode slowly. Now, if you're a filmmaker like me, you're run and gun, so we don't always have time to make minor balance changes. So I shoot with a lot of zoom lenses, and I like to zoom in and zoom out during a shot without having to rebalance. So in this shot, I'm using a 24-70 f4 Zeiss lens. I want to see how the lens offset weight from the zoom affects the gimbals. At 70mm focal length, when the lens was fully offset and not balanced on the gimbal, I did feel like the Crane Plus was a little bit stiffer and did a slightly better job at balancing that offset weight. Both gimbals also allow you to adjust motor strength settings within the given applications. When it comes down to the features of the applications and how well they're designed, both companies need to improve on their applications. I did feel like some features were lacking. However, with Feiyu-Tech, they added a tracking feature which tracks moving subjects automatically without user input, so I did think that was a neat feature. Also, both applications allow you to wirelessly control the gimbal using virtual joysticks. Aesthetically, both gimbals look fantastic. I love the red accents on the A2000. However, when you're in a professional setting, it's important to be as low profile as possible, so the Crane Plus takes the slight edge there for being a little bit more of a simpler design. You don't want to catch anyone's attention. Now, the test footage. I'm going to be comparing the test footage from both gimbals while using different focal lengths. I'm going to let you decide which footage you like more. both gimbals performed exceptionally well. It's at 50mm and 70mm where we start to see a major difference. The A2000 liked to bobble around from left to right. The Crane Plus did not have this bobbling effect. Both gimbals were set at default factory settings. So, which gimbal wins? The Crane Plus did have an edge, especially when it came down to battery life, ergonomics, and stability. My overall experience and testing from both gimbals led me to use the Crane Plus a lot more. Okay, one more thing guys. If this video gets 200 likes, I will compare the Feiyu-Tech Crane 2 gimbal and the Moswa Air. Now that's really exciting. Alright guys, well that's my comparison on the A2000 and the Crane Plus. If you want to see more test footage from each individual gimbal, go ahead and check out the links right here to see my review on each gimbal. Also, don't forget to give this video a big like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel with notifications on. I can't wait to see what you create, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.